All right, welcome to Nutritional Periodization. We talked briefly about maintenance calories and kind of going over what that looks like, how to calculate those, and why those are important. I want to dive even deeper into the phases of macro tracking, why each phase matters, where you might need to be starting at, and what each phase looks like and the expectations that can come from each phase. Most people who either have tracked calories in the past or maybe have even tracked macros in the past only do so for weight loss. So typically they come into calorie tracking because they have a goal to lose weight, and that's all that they think macro tracking or calorie tracking is useful for, but they're actually missing the bigger picture because any kind of weight loss, fat loss phase is a very brief portion of your year. In fact, maybe 16 to 18 weeks tops. So you spend the majority of the year actually in maintenance, going through a reverse diet to get to maintenance. Or if you have the goal and want to go through an optional surplus to be able to build muscle, that is an option too. So we're going to break down each phase of the nutritional periodization. At the end, you're going to see a chart so that you can kind of associate it with a cycle, because that's essentially what you need to think of, is that these phases you are eventually going to cycle through. You should be cycling through. If you have a goal, especially for fat loss or weight loss, it is likely that you're not going to enter your first deficit phase and reach your goal right away. Maybe you do. Maybe you don't have but a small amount of weight to lose, and we're able to do that through one deficit phase. But it's very likely, and I have walked clients through a lot of reverse diets into maintenance, and then we dip into a deficit and we have to come back up to a reverse and hit a deficit again. So I've walked clients through this where we have to dip into that fat loss phase a few times before we get them where they want to be. And that is what it's supposed to look like. You are not supposed to be dieting all year long. And yet most people approach it this way. So let's talk about objectives. You're going to understand the nutritional phases and why cycling through different phases is essential for long-term success. You're going to learn the purpose of each phase. So reverse dieting, maintenance, fat loss, muscle building, and when to apply them. Recognize why staying in a calorie deficit long-term is not sustainable and how strategic phases support metabolism, hormones, and overall health. Gain clarity on how to transition between phases based on your body's need, progress, and goals. Learn how to approach macro tracking as a long-term strategy rather than a short-term diet for lasting results. So, what are macros and why do they matter? So, we briefly touched on this, but macros are the nutrients you need in larger quantities, hence why we call them macronutrients. In order to understand the nutritional phases, you have to understand macro tracking and understand how this breaks down into the calories. So, for every 1 gram of protein and 1 gram of carb, it equals 4 calories. And for every 1 gram of fat, it equals 9 calories. So, knowing this information, you should be able to take a food label and look at how many calories does this product have, and then how many calories are coming from fats, carbs, and protein, and be able to kind of do the math and figure out for yourself what that equates to. And why that is important, and something I teach my clients, is the FDA actually allows rounding of food labels. So if you have ever tracked in MyFitnessPal and something doesn't match up whenever you scan a barcode, or it's completely off and completely wrong, then it is very likely that this product has either A, been entered in wrong, or B, that it has been allowed to be rounded in our area. And so that food product is just off whenever you track it. That's why I think it's important for you to check the math. So knowing the above is key to successfully setting and tracking your macros for your goals, and understanding the material that is presented throughout this module will also further support that. So this is what is the nutritional periodization? So this is the process of planning out your diet on a macro level. So ensuring you have phases dedicated to each outcome needed to facilitate long-term success. So this is looking at, and this is what I do with my clients and why it's very important to work with a coach through this, but this is, maybe you come to me with a goal and your goal is fat loss or weight loss. However, we have to look at what is your background with dieting history, where you're at metabolically right now, if you're ready for another fat loss phase, and if you've been someone who has only dieted for years and years and years and has never actually tried to eat at maintenance. So it looks at your goal and then looks at your dieting history or your history with nutrition. And that's where I come in to be able to bridge that gap and decide, okay, I know that you have a fat loss goal and that you want to enter a fat loss phase. However, you have spent the last X amount of time, X amount of years trying to lose weight. And so your metabolism has likely adapted, which we went over previously. And whenever your metabolism adapts, we need to support it by actually working through a reverse diet. So we have to go through the background of looking at you individually, what your goal is, and really what that history is, because what you have set your body up for is very important. So the phases of the nutrition cycle we have mentioned, it's reverse diet, maintenance, diet breaks, and surplus. In order to lose fat and build muscle, you must go through the nutritional periodization cycle. So it is a cycle. And then follow the nutritional periodization cycle ensures you have a plan not only to lose the weight, but even after weight loss to keep it off. And that's what's really important about understanding we can't diet all year long, and understanding how to properly go through a reverse diet to be able to get back up to your maintenance calories, because many people, many women do not struggle to actually lose weight. They struggle to maintain the weight loss after they have lost it, because either A, they didn't do it in a sustainable manner, or B, they didn't actually work themselves out of the diet. And once they got to their goal, they just kind of started eating whatever, increased their calories too fast, and they weren't actually able to maintain the weight loss. So let's talk about reverse diet, because this is actually where I start most all of my female clients out in a reverse diet, because like I said previously, there's a long history of dieting. There's a long history of trying to always lose weight, and this definitely affects their metabolic rate and where they're at calorically. So it's the process that we work through to slowly bring calories back up to maintenance. So after an extended period of time, whether planned, whether we're in a fat loss phase and we're planning to bring the calories back up, or not planned, where you have just continued to diet either on purpose or just underate accidentally, it's to bring those calories back up to maintenance. Most people who want to enter a fat loss phase are not ready to enter this phase. Their bodies are not in a place physically, neurologically, or hormonally to take on the stress of dieting, because dieting is a stress on the body. Your body has adapted, like I spoke about. Your metabolism has downregulated. You need to first bring the calories back up to get your body out of the adaptation that it's in and reignite your metabolism. Building your metabolism through reverse dieting helps in the next fat loss phase. It ensures you're in a place to respond while also being able to keep calories higher and see results. The goal is to keep any weight gain at a minimum. However, there will be some weight gain. So if we have went through a fat loss phase together and you reached your lowest weight and we start to slowly reverse you back up, it is going to be common to probably see the scale fluctuate 2 to 3 pounds, and you don't actually stay at your lowest recorded weight. So don't let that freak you out in a reverse diet. The goal is to maintain most all of your progress and to reach kind of like a homeostasis place where you're able to actually eat more calories, feel full, feel satisfied, regain that energy, get out of the diet, and feel like you're not having to restrict yourself so hard to maintain those results. You should start here if you've been dieting for an extended period of time. So how to be successful in a reverse diet? First of all, I always tell clients, please understand that this phase is not about weight loss. However, more than half of my clients who enter a reverse diet with me do see weight loss, significant weight loss, as a byproduct of the reverse diet. Again, it is not the goal of this phase. Not every single one of my clients have seen this as a byproduct, but more than half of the clients who work with me do. Why is that? Well, your body needed the extra calories. Whenever we withhold food and undereat, everything downregulates. The hormones that we need to optimally see fat loss downregulate. Your body kind of goes into preservation mode because it's recognizing, hey, I'm not getting but X amount of calories every day, and to sustain these functions, I really need to just preserve. And so when we add food to your body, fuel to the fire, then your body starts to respond in a way that's good. It sees, hey, like we're no longer eating at the bare minimum calories every day. We can actually utilize these calories to be able to upregulate things. And whenever we upregulate the necessary hormones to be able to see fat loss, your body naturally starts dropping on the scale, dropping inches, your clothes are feeling better, and you personally feel better having weight loss in this manner. The scale will likely go up some in a reverse diet. It's not uncommon, but it can also go down. Like I said, more than half of my clients see that as a byproduct. You got to shift your mind from focusing on the scale going down, though, because many women that I work with through a reverse diet if they have that dieting background and that dieting history, it's not honestly the food and increasing their calories that's hard. It's working through their mindset and their relationship with food and helping them understand that this is part of the process. We cannot keep doing what you've been doing to try to see weight loss and to try to see the results you want to see, because it hasn't actually been working. So we want to focus on things like energy level increasing. You're feeling stronger in your workouts. You're lifting heavier. You're sleeping better. You feel less irritable. Your digestion is better, and your hormone health is improving. Understanding this work has to be done in order to have a successful cut phase and to see fat loss. So this is the back end work that we cannot skip. If you want to be able to go into another fat loss phase, another dieting phase, you cannot skip the reverse diet. It is necessary to be able to set you up metabolically to be able to respond to the next time that we do actually cut your calories down. And here's the beautiful thing about it. Your calories are going to be higher because we worked through a reverse diet and got you up to maintenance, that whenever we do actually have to go in and cut your calories down, you're actually going to be in a diet phase, probably eating the most food that you ever ate when you were trying to see fat loss. Okay, talk about maintenance. I feel like maintenance is something that most people really don't see the importance of, or really don't even understand or think is a thing. But maintenance is a beautiful place to be. I have personally really enjoyed eating at maintenance. I spend most of my time every single year at maintenance calories, and that's exactly what you should be doing too. So what are your maintenance calories? I mean, simple as that. Maintenance calories are the amount of food your body needs to sustain your current weight while supporting your daily functions, your workout, and your recovery. So it is your total daily energy expenditure. It's your balance between the energy you consume and the energy you burn. So, you're eating just enough to maintain currently what you're doing. So why is maintenance phase important? Metabolic health prevents the downregulation that we keep talking about of your metabolism after dieting for an extended period of time. Hormonal balance, we want to support your thyroid, your menstrual health, and the stress on your body. We want to help you recover. Eating at maintenance definitely is a recovery mechanism for your body as well. It also helps with your muscle recovery and your performance. It allows better muscle growth and strength gains. So a lot of people think that, we're building muscle in the gym. We're actually tearing muscle in the gym, and the recovery part after our workouts with our nutrition, our sleep, our rest, that is what builds your muscle. So maintenance is going to help support having enough calories on board to repair and build that muscle. It gives you a nice diet break, and it's a sustainable approach. So it teaches you how to maintain your results without constant restriction. You don't want to have to diet all the time to be able to maintain the results. If that is the case, then your plan was never actually sustainable in the first place, and it probably wasn't a good plan. Long-term success. So you want to not only see the fat loss, change your body composition in the ways that you want to change it, but you want to be able to maintain that. Again, like I said previously, plenty of people know how to lose weight. They don't actually know how to maintain it. And that becomes the biggest problem and what keeps you into that cycle of constantly yo-yo dieting, because you lose the weight, you don't actually know how to maintain it. So you regain that, same 10 pounds, and then you're back to trying to lose it again. And it's a constant flip and flop on that. Who should focus on maintenance calories? So I think this is a great place for anyone and everyone to start out, especially if you have never tracked your food before. You do not need to try to enter a fat loss phase, and I'll even dare to say you probably don't need to enter a surplus phase if you've never tracked macros or tracked your food before, because that is a whole learning curve of itself. Maintenance is a great place for you to figure out how to use a food scale, how to use a tracking app, how to build balanced meals, how to build, high protein recipes. All of those things are really foundational that you need to have as a skill that you feel very comfortable in before you go into, a fat loss or a muscle building phase. So those who have recently completed a fat loss phase, we're going to focus on maintenance once we're finished with that phase. Anyone experiencing low energy, poor recovery, hormonal imbalances from extended dieting, you should be starting at maintenance. Individuals looking to build strength and muscle without excess fat gain, maintenance is a great place to do that. Those who want to repair their metabolism after, chronic undereating or restrictive dieting, maintenance, again, is the place that you want to be. Anyone who wants to learn sustainable eating habits without the pressure of a deficit or a surplus should be starting at maintenance. So the key takeaway here is maintenance isn't just a phase between dieting phases. It's where your body thrives and where you develop sustainable habits for long-term success. And it's honestly where you want to land and be long-term. Get comfortable with maintenance. Don't avoid it. And don't feel like and this is the sentence that you've been given by me, your coach, that it's somewhere you can't make progress. A lot of progress is made in a maintenance phase. All right, so let's just talk about some myths and facts because I see this or have had these questions or concerns come up. So, eating at maintenance means I won't make progress. Wrong. Maintenance is progress. It's where your metabolism, your hormones, and your body composition stabilize, setting the foundation for future fat loss or muscle gain. It's the back end work that you need to stop skipping. If I'm not in a deficit, I'll gain weight. Also wrong. Eating at maintenance does not cause fat gain. It simply means your intake matches your energy output. Weight fluctuations may happen due to water retention, glycogen storage, and digestion, but it's not fat gain. I should always be cutting or bulking. Maintenance is a waste of my time. Also wrong. Long-term dieting without maintenance phases leads to metabolic adaptations, muscle loss, and hormonal imbalances. Maintenance is essential for keeping your metabolism and progress on track. So again, maintenance is very important. The last one here is eating more than my deficit calories will make me gain weight immediately. Also wrong. Gradually increasing to maintenance allows your metabolism to adjust without storing excess fat. That what you need fuels to function optimally, and under eating long term works against you. All right, now that we have covered maintenance and its importance, let's talk about a cut phase, also referred to as diet, fat loss, weight loss, deficit. You'll hear me say those interchangeably. I'm referring to this cut phase whenever I say those words interchangeably. So, what is a deficit phase? A calorie deficit occurs when you consume fewer calories than your body burns, forcing it to use stored energy, body fat, for fuel. This phase is strategically designed for fat loss, not just weight loss. So, if done appropriately, then you should see overall fat loss. And the goal is to maintain any muscle mass on your body. So, this is why macro tracking is superior. We have a high focus on high protein meals and recipes and making sure that you have a protein goal to stick to. And whenever I figure out where your protein comfort level is or goal can be set to and you can actually consistently obtain, I don't mess with that in a fat loss phase. I actually leave it where it's at. Why is that? Because I want the weight that you're losing to actually be fat and not from muscle. So that's why you'll see your protein stay really high in a fat loss or cut phase, and I actually just manipulate the calories from your carbohydrates and your fats. So why is this phase important? Reduces body fat. That's typically why most people decide they want to, go into a weight loss phase while preserving muscles when done correctly. Enhances your metabolic flexibility, training the body to use stored energy efficiently. It also improves insulin sensitivity, which supports fat loss and overall metabolic health. Helps achieve aesthetic goals in a structured, sustainable way. So, how do you approach this in the right way? So, keeping the deficit moderate, aiming for 10 to 20%. I'm going to be honest here. I have mostly had to cut people down 10, 15% tops. I really haven't had to touch that 20% for maintenance to be able to see successful fat loss for my clients. And so, we're coming down from your maintenance calories. We're wanting to preserve muscle, and we really want to avoid any metabolic slowdown. So in a cut phase, we really want to keep the calorie deficit as slight as it can be so that your body doesn't recognize, hey, I'm actually getting less calories, and it starts to adapt. It will eventually adapt. That's a normal part of a cut phase. And it's exactly why the cut phase has a time limit, not a weight loss limit, meaning we already know going into a fat loss phase, you're going to end this fat loss after X amount of weeks. And we're going to come back up with a reverse diet into maintenance. Not, we're going to come out of this fat loss phase when we lose 20 pounds. That is not how we approach a fat loss phase. So we prioritize protein intake. This prevents any muscle loss and supports satiety. Strength train regularly, which, resistance training ensures fat loss, not muscle loss. Be patient and consistent. So it is a very slight deficit. You will see results over time. The big thing is to be consistent with your nutrition and to stick with it, because it is not a quick fix whenever we do this. You will slowly start to see progress, and it is very normal to have weeks where you don't see any weight loss, and then all of a sudden we see a pound or two of weight loss, and then we're kind of stalled again, and then we see a pound or two of weight loss. In a cut phase, I really want my clients focused on being satiated with the high protein intake, focus on how they feel, energy, sleep, all of those things, how their clothes are fitting, and the measurements and their body composition. Those are going to change prior to the scale actually catching up to your hard work. So, who should enter a deficit phase? Individuals with excess body fat who have been at maintenance and are ready for a structured fat loss phase are ready to enter a cut phase. Those who have prioritized their metabolism first, so they're not coming from a chronic dieting background or a low calorie intake, they've done the work to reverse diet and actually eat at maintenance. Women who feel good hormonally and energy. Deficits require proper recovery capacity. Anyone who understands fat loss is temporary and is willing to return to maintenance after reaching their goal. So just know that this is a very temporary phase. We will not be staying here for an extended period of time just to see the scale reach the goal in which that you think that you want to reach. It is definitely time-based. So when we think about things that are common mistakes within this phase, eating too little too fast. So again, it's a very slight cut. Most of my clients, I cut down 10% from their maintenance calories. A lot of times that's not even 200 calories that is missing from their diet. The doing something too fast and going to a very hard cut leads to metabolic adaptations and muscle loss. We do not want to skip maintenance beforehand. That is the back work. And if you haven't done that, then that's where we're going to start. Overdoing calorie and cardio and under eating. So yes, obviously, when we think about the calories in, calories out method, the more that you move, the more you're going to burn. If you're eating less, and hopefully we're going to burn more fat, but you don't want to burn yourself out. You don't, again, stress on the body recognizes. So even in the gym, and we consider that a good stress, our body doesn't realize the difference between good and bad stress. So if you're overdoing it with cardio and we've cut down your calories, it is very likely that your body's going to adapt much faster than if we just come up with the 10% deficit and slightly increase the cardio, focus on maybe a step goal instead of hitting like the Stairmasters for 30 to 40 minutes every single day. If we slowly increase that movement and have like a goal that's attainable, your body is going to appreciate it so much more and you're going to have a better response. Ignoring biofeedback. So we want to know if you're having poor sleep, low energy, extreme hunger, your deficit should not be miserable. I'm not coaching any bikini competitors, so I should not see clients completely miserable in their cut phase. Staying in a deficit too long. So I've mentioned this a lot. There will be a time where me and you already know this is X amount of weeks that we're going to stay in this, and then we're coming up to a reverse diet and back into maintenance. Okay, so surplus phase. Honestly, one of my favorite phases, but it is very optional. You do not have to do a surplus, but it is a lot of fun. And if you are willing to trust this phase, then you are going to definitely add muscle to your body. And the next time that you go into a deficit phase, you're really going to reap the benefits of all of that hard work that you did in a bulk. So, who's a surplus for? A calorie surplus occurs when you consume more calories than your body burns, providing excess energy to support muscle growth, strength gains, and recovery. This phase is commonly referred to as bulking, but when done correctly, it focuses on lean muscle gain, not excess fat gain. So why is this phase important? Builds lean muscle. So if you're someone that's like, hey, I've kind of maxed out my muscle gains at maintenance, I'm really ready to start pushing that and add more muscle to my body, then we probably need to look at increasing you to a surplus. This also improves body composition and metabolic health. It increases strength and performance, allowing for better training and recovery, supports hormone health, especially after extended deficits or maintenance phases, and it improves metabolism as more muscle mass increases energy expenditure. So if no one has ever told you before, the more muscle that you have on your body, the more calories that you need to maintain said muscle. So what happens whenever we increase your muscle? That means we're likely going to be increasing your maintenance calories when we go cut back down to your maintenance. Why is that? Because we now need more calories on board to maintain said muscle. So you're going to improve your metabolic rate whenever you add muscle to your body. It's a really, really good thing to do. And also, it's a great hack for you to be able to eat more and to maintain your body composition. Okay, so how to approach a surplus in the right way. You want to keep the surplus controlled. So again, we don't really need to just be adding in a whole bunch of extra calories. I also do not ever want my clients to do what I call a dirty bulk, where you just eat whatever. It really is a strategic approach. So we're aiming for anywhere from 5 to 15% increase above your maintenance calories to prevent any excess fat gain. You're going to prioritize your protein take. Again, very, very important. This ensures the extra calories support muscle growth, not fat storage. and progress overload in training or progressive overload in training. So we have to pair your exercise plan with your surplus phase. You don't want to be eating in a bulk, but you don't actually have a workout plan that is prioritized for muscle growth and to really push you to prioritize progressive overloads and have strategic points in that plan where you are maxing out and seeing what your body can do. So, except some weight gain is going to happen. This is probably the hardest part for any females I have walked through a surplus, is that we have got to just not focus so much on the scale. Our clothes are going to fit tighter. I actually, at one point in time, had my, one size set of scrubs for whenever I wasn't bulking, and then I had a whole size up set of scrubs for whenever I was bulking, because I actually grew out of my scrubs and I grew out of my jeans. So it's a very humbling process, but I cannot recommend it enough, because if it wasn't for going through a few bulks, I would not have the body composition and the muscle on my body that I have now if it wasn't for trusting that process. But it is a very humbling process. So who should enter a surplus phase? Individuals looking to build that lean muscle and a strength in a strategic, structured way. Those who have been in a deficit and want to improve their body composition by adding more muscle. Women with low energy, hormonal imbalances, or a history of chronic dieting can also benefit from a surplus. Anyone who wants long-term metabolic health. Muscle equals a higher calorie burn at rest. So if you want to add more muscle to your body, then yes, a surplus is for you. So common mistakes for a surplus phase: eating too much too fast. So just like I said, dirty bulk. We're just never going to do that. It's not going to happen. Not prioritizing protein. So we want the extra calories should be coming from protein, carbs, and a healthy fat, not just, again, dirty bulk, junk food. Skipping strength training. Absolutely not. If you're in a surplus, then strength training should have a strategic plan and a program that you focus on. Gaining weight too quickly. We want to make sure that we're watching that. Aim for half a pound to a pound per month. Okay, per month. I was so humbled whenever I entered a surplus, because I thought, this is going to be great. I'm going to eat a lot of food. I'm going to put, muscle on really quickly. I was in a surplus on and off for a whole year. And I think I gained maybe 10 to 15 pounds. It was a very humbling experience. It was hard. It was hard to eat that much. It was hard to push that hard in the gym. I'm very glad that I did it, but it was not a quick process. Cutting too soon. So again, I see people who want to come into a surplus phase and they only want to give it, 3 to 4 months of bulking, and then they want to cut down because maybe they're feeling, puffy or pudgy, or they see the scale go up, their clothes are fitting tighter. So they're starting to get into their mind about what's happening, and, they're feeling a little bit triggered. And so like, okay, actually I want to cut now. No, you're going to skip out on what you can actually do if we cut your surplus in half. You need to look at being in a surplus 6-9 months, if not a year, because it is not a quick process. You really have to try to push the food and the weights in the gym to actually be able to build muscle. As someone who has done that before, and someone who has walked clients through it, and someone who has dealt with the difficult conversation of someone that's like, no, actually, I want to cut down now, because they're just having some mental struggles when it comes to a surplus. It's not for everyone, I'm going to be honest, but I think anyone and everyone could benefit from it, especially if you're at a place to add muscle mass to your body. So the key takeaways for your surplus is it's got to be strategic. It's an essential phase for anyone looking to increase strength, improve metabolism, and build lean muscle. The goal isn't just weight gain, it is quality muscle with minimal fat for long-term success. Okay, something that maybe you don't know about, haven't heard of, is diet breaks. So they're very strategically planned in a fat loss phase, and this is kind of to help you adhere better to your fat loss phase. Or maybe we're recognizing, hey, you've kind of stopped responding. I'm not really sure if you're hitting a plateau, not really sure what's happening. Maybe we give you a little break, increase your calories for a bit, and then bring you back down and see how you respond. It is a strategy to get the most out of your fat loss phase. So what is a diet break? It's a diet break is a planned return to maintenance calories for a set period of time. It can be for a week, a couple weeks during your fat loss phase. Unlike a cheat day or binge, which we don't want to see, a diet break is structured. So it's intentional, and it's designed to give your body and mind a temporary break from the deficit while keeping progress on track. So why are diet breaks important? Like I said, prevents metabolic adaptation. So eating at maintenance helps prevent your metabolism from slowing down and, due to prolonged dieting. That's going to happen. We're going to have adaptations. I've mentioned that before, but this is just a strategic plan we can put in place to insert if we start to notice that or not quite ready for your diet phase to be over yet. Supports hormone health, so increases your leptin, which is your hormone, your hunger regulating hormone, and helps balance cortisol, which is the stress hormone. Improves adherence. This is a big one for clients who's needed a diet break. If I give them a week where we bring them back up, they really feel like they have their mental headspace and physical even reset where they can get control of the cravings and dial back in. Promotes muscle mass. So ensures you're losing fat and not muscle, especially during longer deficits, and better long-term results. So we're talking, strategic breaks makes fat loss more sustainable, and it really helps you prevent burnout. So that's the two reasons I use it. If I notice that we're kind of adapting sooner than I really wanted to, I'll insert a diet break. If I notice my clients really struggling on their check-ins, they, need that mental break from the deficit, or the cravings are out of control, they just need to come up for a minute, have a breath, and then we jump back in. Okay, so how to implement a diet break correctly. You want to increase to maintenance. This isn't a free-for-all week where you're taking off. This isn't an all-you-can-eat, hit up the drive-through or whatever other takeout that it was that you really wanted. It is structured. You want to keep your protein intake high. Hope you're noticing that theme here. Protein intake is always going to be high. Helps maintain lean muscle and recovery. You don't drastically change food choices. So stick to the whole nutrient-dense foods to avoid any bloating or fatigue. Strength training remains consistent. We're not going to change that plan, and monitor how you feel. So take note of energy, sleep quality, mood, and hunger to see how your body responds. So, who should take a diet break? Anyone who's been in a deficit for 6+ weeks could benefit from a diet break. And you probably are starting to maybe see your metabolic system start to slow down. We're not really seeing the progress we want to see, or it's stalled. This is when it could be very good to insert a diet break. Individuals with high stress or hormonal imbalances also would be great with the diet break. Anyone struggling with adherence, this is huge. So a diet break can help, curb the hunger and the cravings and really increase the motivation and adherence to the plan. Those in long-term fat loss phases, instead of pushing through and hitting a plateau, a diet break really helps keep progress moving. What we do not want to see is, it turn into a binge. So this isn't a free-for-all eating phase. It's structured. We also don't want to see it turn, the break too short. So give your body at least 7 to 14 days is typically what the diet break will consist of. We also don't want to see over restricting over the break. Jumping back into an aggressive deficit too soon negates the benefits of the diet break. Lastly, we do not want to ignore the biofeedback. So track how you feel, better energy, mood, digestion, all of that matters. We want to make sure we're paying attention to that. Okay, so now that we have covered the phases of nutritional periodization, now we can kind of give it a visual of what it's supposed to look like. So a lot of people enter macro tracking or calorie tracking, like I said at the beginning, thinking, oh, I want to lose weight. Fat loss is my plan forever and ever. Amen. I'm going to constantly stay into a diet. What I want you to know now that you have the information about the different phases of macro tracking is it is a cycle. You should be cycling through these phases to see sustainable results, to really see the body composition changes that you want to see, to, adapt, upregulate your metabolism, have a higher fed metabolic rate. So you're going to go through a deficit, and then you're going to go through a reverse diet, and you're going to eat at maintenance. And maybe you do hit a surplus, and then you come back to maintenance, and maybe you hit a diet, and we insert a diet break. It is a cycle. It is not macro tracking, calorie tracking is not a one-way street that you forever follow for weight loss. It should be something that you phase through these different phases. So some case studies for you to be able to see clients I've actually worked with. This is a client who entered in with a reverse diet. So she was under eating. We had to do the back end work of slowly increasing the calories. And once we got her to her maintenance, we let her eat there for a few months, honestly, because if you had a very long history of dieting, you should spend the same amount of time at maintenance calories. Give your body a chance to actually kind of reach that homeostasis, rebalance hormones, take the stress off, really get your mind right before we go into another cut. So we went to a cut, hit another reverse, brought it back up to maintenance. So she started eating probably around 1,200 calories. And then by the time that we're done, we have added 8 100 calories easily into her nutrition plan, and she actually saw incredible weight loss and body composition changes. This is a client that we just hit with a reverse diet. So whenever she first started, she was under eating, same situation. We slowly brought her calories up to maintenance. And this is what I was talking about. Not every client sees this, but more than half the time, the women that I work with who have a really bad dieting history, who enter a reverse diet with me, actually see the weight loss they have really been trying to see the whole time they've been yo-yo dieting. We increase the calories slowly. We put an emphasis on the protein. We cut down any kind of crazy cardio you've been doing. We enter a strength training plan, and you just trust the process with us. And so we get you up to maintenance, and this is what happened. She saw all the results she's really been fighting for in a reverse diet. So we never once cut her calories down. Last one here. This is also same situation. Hit a reverse diet with her, slowly brought the calories up. I remember having to have a conversation with her sometime through this about cutting back all the excessive cardio and classes that she was going to on top of the planned workouts that we had for her. So we actually had to pull back on that. So we added more food in and pulled back on the exercise. And this is the result she got. She started to see body composition changes. Her weight went down as well. And so all we had to do was touch a reverse diet. So again, we never actually cut her calories. So that is the conclusion of the nutritional periodization lecture. Please let me know if you have questions about this. Please let me know if you're interested in a specific phase or if you need me to elaborate on something. This is the foundation of understanding what macro tracking is really about and what it should look like for you, and to understand it as a cycle, and that you'll likely have to cycle through these phases a few times before you actually reach your either goal weight or your goal body composition.